Welcome back to the All Beef No Filler podcast. I'm your host, Pascal Paul, the director of scouting for Prep Baseball Nebraska, and joined to start off season 3. I think he started off 2 seasons ago for us, starting off this season of the All Beef No Filler podcast, head coach of the 2025 Class A state champion Lincoln East Spartans, Mychal Lanik. Welcome, Coach.
Hey guys, thanks for having us. We like to kick off.
It's always a special time when we start our podcast season again. You, I think, probably have the best scenery we've had for a podcast guest. I think you're on the campus of Notre Dame at the moment.
Yeah, we are. We're here. I don't know if you can see it, but we got Touchdown Jesus behind
that camera,
us,
Coach. Can we see Touchdown Jesus?
Yeah, let me see if I can flip this.
No problem. There we go. That's awesome.
Yeah,
you guys playing there
sweet.
This weekend, obviously, for Summer Bowl?
Yeah, the Carpet Land boys got a tournament down here this weekend, so we play later today, and we're excited about it. It should be a fun trip.
Well, we all know why we're here. 2025 state champions. Recap the season a little bit for us. It was a wildly successful one for you guys. Not as, I don't want to say predictable as the last 2 previous years, because I don't think anything's predictable, but a lot more uncertainty this year, I think, across the state in baseball. How did you guys navigate this season, and why were you guys successful this year?
Well, I think just like a lot of teams, we came into this year and we were missing or replacing a lot of important pieces. I think we graduated some incredible players, but more importantly, just a lot of depth. I mean, on the pitching staff and in the middle of the lineup, guys that had a lot of success this year playing college baseball. We just had to get, kind of, I don't want to say a brand new identity, but a different identity in terms of who we were going to be and, the type of team we were going to have. And to be totally honest, Pascal, like the credit for our season just goes to the players and the seniors that we have. And those guys, they desperately wanted to win, and just being around winning baseball and being around, championship level baseball, they knew what it took to have a season to put us in position to be there at the end. And so, to replace those arms the way we did, I thought Jeter, our catcher, went above and beyond 1,000-fold in terms of getting those young pitchers just ready to compete versus good lineups. And then, our coaching staff, Coach Saltero and Coach Doggett, and those guys just got our guys ready to compete. We played a really, really tough schedule this year. In 2024, we tried to play a tough schedule, but we just didn't run into the type of arms we ran into this year. I felt like this year, every time out, we were facing a Chandler or a Stelling or a Holscher or a, Cato or whoever else it was Albert, and it was just a litmus test for our hitters. But, by the end, I think we were so prepared for those games that, it just really helped us.
You talked a little bit about Jeter and his leadership ability for the young staff, I think, in the preseason. I think you guys knew coming in that the pitching staff was going to be something that needed to be coached. I'm sorry, time for me to wake up, I think. The pitching staff was going to be something that you guys needed to advance. It needed to be something that got better throughout the year because you were missing, the Carter Mix and, some of those players. Carter Mix right now, dude's at LSU now, and then you had AJ Vasco, who's a freshman All-American. Those dudes were in your lineup and on your pitching staff last year. So you're definitely not mincing words when you say you got to replace some really, really talented kids this year. The other one that I'd like to touch on just a little bit, well, there's a couple guys, but Peltz, I saw him early in the year. Struggled, I don't want to say struggled the word, but started off a little bit slow. I thought he was hitting more in the middle of the lineup. You made a change with him and put him at the top. Was that strategy for him to just get ruined, seeing some more fastballs, or what was the strategy behind him? And I think it worked. He finished the year, I think, as good as anybody at the plate.
Well, just a couple of things. Number one, like the training centers in Nebraska and the ability for players, especially high-end players like Jeter and Joey and Troy, to train at different places it's better than it's ever been, and the technology's better. And we certainly encourage our kids to go do that. Like Jeter goes up to Chips with Coach Hale and does live at bats and trains, and we love that. And our guys throw around town with like Josh Rader and Jet Fuel. But we also put a lot of value in what we do as a program and how we build our program from the inside out. And so for guys like Jeter, who's a Super 60 invite, who's a Power 4 commit, and Joey Senstock to put such a priority on, hey, we're not going to miss a day of East baseball lifting, and we're not going to miss a day of East open gyms because we need to teach these younger guys how to hold runners. We need to teach these younger guys how to pitch backwards, and we need to be here to condition and show these guys that we're willing to put in the work too. I think it just sets the tone for the whole season. if Jeter and Joey and Troy are gone all off season doing their own thing, it's a lot harder to get buy-in from all the other guys coming up. So that's number one. And then on Troy, man, just the best kid ever, just the toughest, most hardworking kid, and for him to be rewarded there at the end of the season was just like, I mean, it was like a movie because he's been through so much and he's worked. Yeah, I mean, the funny thing, I think Jeter batted leadoff for 2.5 seasons in a row, and he was great at it. But we were just kind of in a little bit of a lull, and we were getting ready to face Scott. We were getting ready to face the big Ziola kid, and I really like Troy's ability to hit fastball, so I just kind of wanted to set the tone versus Ziola with something maybe a little different or maybe a little upgrade from what he's seen. And it worked, and it was funny. Troy drew a walk, and then he stole second, and then Jeter bunted it. So, I mean, it worked perfect. And we just kind of took off from there. So just a credit to those two guys, and, Joey behind him and Harms behind him. But they weren't really phased by anything. I just kind of showed them the lineup and made a little joke like, hey, this is what we're going to do today. And they both laughed and said, let's go. Like, they just want to play. They don't care where they play. They don't care where they hit. They just want to compete and play. And when your best players are like that, it makes your life as a coach really easy.
You don't have to worry about any motivation or any, outside entities. You just got to come and coach and put your players in the best place to win games. And I think you and your staff have done that over the last 3 years, probably as good, if not better, than anyone in the state. The record shows it. The one thing I like that you said earlier was your players didn't want to miss your East stuff. They're all for, the individual accolades. Obviously, you have 3 of the best players in the state. And you have some other kids in Brody McIntyre, Tanner Peterson that have really talented high school careers. They're going to go on to play college baseball. But your kids wanted to be part of East, and they want to show, the young East kids how East baseball plays. And each program is a little bit different. And I think that it's a special thing, and I think it's a rare thing to try to combine that individual success with that success of the team. So congrats to you, Coach, and breeding that culture in your program.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a blessing to have those guys around. That's for
Now, when we talk about that success, I'd like to talk about the last 3 years. So I've got a couple numbers for you that I took off Max Preps. So if they're wrong, I apologize. But in the last 3 years, we have 2 state titles and a runner-up. We finished with a 96. I say we. I'm not part of this program. 96-9 record overall. Talk us through the 3 years of success. What was different about this year than the other 2, and why has this 3 years been so successful for Lincoln?
Well, I mean, first of all, again, every ounce of credit goes to our players. I think if you were making an all-century team of Lincoln East high school baseball players, it would probably be really, really full of kids from those teams. So I'm just really fortunate to be the guy in time that God put here to put the lineup out when those guys are coming through school. I think there's been an incredible level of buy-in, and I don't know if that's because, just traditionally our program hasn't had the success that some of the big schools have had, but our kids are very hungry to win, and they're very hungry to compete against the best. And our athletic department, our athletic staff, Zach Limbach, they do a really good job of creating a schedule that challenges our kids. We get to go play in the Millard West tournament. We get to go play in the Millard South tournament. We get to do all these things. Even, our conference is getting better and better and better. So I just give all the credit to those guys because there's a lot of kids in that program, the last 3 years, Jeter and Troy and Joey and AJ who were on varsity for 3 or 4 years. But I mean, if you watch us play, man, I mean, we aren't in that state championship without guys, like Lewis Cockle, who played JV as a junior, without Grayson Bjorkman, who played JV last year, without Santino, who played JV last year, without Brody, who played JV last year. So it's definitely a balance of, hey, we have these really high-end talented players who, just make game-changing plays. If you watch the last game, I mean, Troy just made game-changing plays. And then there's other guys that waited for their opportunity that worked. I think Lewis had a sacrifice fly in the second. He got us out of a jam in the 7th, and he drew a leadoff walk in the 7th. So it's just a accumulation of a lot of really talented kids, a lot of really hardworking kids that have all bought in to kind of chase this thing and, make it a really special 4-year experience. And I think those guys, when they're 28 years old and they're 38 years old, they're going to look back and have some really fond memories of playing high school baseball, which is, as a coach, what you want for your players.
Especially this year, just across the landscape of Nebraska baseball, it was so even. And you knew the games were going to be won at the edges. Can our guys play the roles? Can we get the bunt down? Can we steal the base? Can we get the sign right? And I feel like over the last 3 years, your I think everybody in the state has, the high end players, especially when you make the state tournament. Your Jeters, your Troys, your Joeys, and those guys have to play well. But it's those other guys, and I think your program has provided a system and an opportunity for those guys to have success, and you celebrate that success. In the dugout, on the field, those little wins. Somebody gets a bunt down in your program, the whole dugout's picking them up. When you come to it, it's not just the guy who hits the home run or guy gets a strikeout. It's every little thing that contributes to winning. And I thought your team this year did an incredible job of just owning their roles and celebrating those roles when we have success.
Yeah, I think the loss last year, Millard West was so talented in 2024, but they were so well coached. I mean, they beat us in the state championship game, and one of the main reasons why is because they read two balls in the dirt and they advanced on two balls in the dirt and they scored because of it. So for our guys to be in the dugout and see that and see, hey, these guys who have MLB draft picks and kids starting at Creighton and all these Iowa commits and all this stuff, and they're eating balls in the dirt and they're making these plays. It's like when you really watch the games, like, yeah, it's great when AJ hits one to the moon and clears the bases, or when Troy does that. But there's a lot of times in high school baseball and innings won because a guy lays off of a tough 2-2 pitch and draws a walk and reads the ball in the dirt, and it just makes it fun because you didn't have to play at the highest level of youth baseball to be able to do that. You don't have to be the highest ranked PBR commit to be able to do that. You just have to be kind of tough. And we value and we preach toughness in our program every single day, and we've been blessed to have a lot of tough kids. So yeah, it's cool when those things happen and our kids see it. And when the younger kids see the older kids do it and they learn how to do it, it makes it really fun.
It breeds that success that you want. Like you said, you want to be a part of those things. And I think I gave a speech at one of my last events where coaches want kids that win games. At the end of the day, these coaches are getting paid to win games. And even the stuff that we do, it's all great, and it provides a service, and it gives you a somewhat of a picture of your baseball ability. But you got to be able to win games. You got to do and play winning baseball, and especially in today's days in recruiting and college baseball, if you don't play winning baseball, people will find somebody different that'll play winning baseball. And I think you and even those not the Joeys or the Troys, but the guys on the edges, they learn how to play winning baseball. So when they do go to their schools, junior college, D2, they're ready to step in right away, play, contribute, and get better. And with today's college baseball, you get better every year. You're going to find new opportunities.
And it seems, man, like at the top in Nebraska, like Greg at Millard South and Steve, and the Papio South guys, they do such a good job of that stuff. It's just, you got to go out there and execute at a high level, and it makes it really fun to compete against those guys when everybody.
Yeah, you're playing. I mean, like you said, you're playing Millard West, and two dirtball reads is what's the difference in the game. It's such a fine line that when you do see that success and you have guys that buy in, it's so much fun to be around the game.
For sure. Yeah, it's been pretty cool to be a part of and to see our guys just grow in it, and the life that they have to celebrate each other's success is something we preach and we talk about. So yeah, it's fun when it shows up on the biggest stage and everybody gets to see it when Tanner gets a perfect bunt down, and man, that was
well, Coach, we talked a lot about your team, and rightfully so. They deserve a lot, if not all, of the credit. But as you personally, as a coach, how have you changed, or what have you learned through these 3 years, or this year particularly, that has shaped you as a coach or moved the needle for you?
I mean, this is maybe kind of a cliche answer, but the more I've been around and the more I've done this, the more I've just learned and tried to learn, and I'm still not perfect at it. You can ask my guys, but the better relationships you can have with your kids, the tougher they're going to play for you, the harder you're going to be able to coach them, and the more you're going to be able to get out of them. If there's a player in our program that I don't have a great relationship with, then I think there's times where the growth isn't as quick as it should be. So I think first and foremost in coaching in 2025, it's about having relationships with kids, but it's about being able to push and to challenge them to kind of reach their limits without going over a breaking point, without causing a strain on it. So we try to coach our kids really, really hard. We try to hold them really, really accountable. We check their grades, we make sure they're in the weight room, we do all of these things. But for the most part, I think our kids understand that that's because we want what's best for them, and we want them to be successful not only at East High School, but if they go to play college baseball, if they become a husband someday, if they become a father someday, if they're working for Huddle or Google or LPS or wherever someday, like We want them to be professional people. And so I just think that the longer we're around our kids, the more they understand that and the more they understand how much we care about them. I don't know if you heard, but after we won, Troy got interviewed on the field and he was almost emotional. And he was just talking about like, playing at East was a dream for him. And, it was memories with brothers that he'll have forever. And, to hear that and to like sit back, it's just a really, really cool thing to be a guy that's kind of been a small piece in building something like that because it's not like that everywhere. Sometimes teams finish their season or kids graduate and they're kind of just excited and move on and see what's next. So for those 18-year-olds to have that perspective that like this was a really cool thing is what we're trying to build. And I think I'm getting a little better at it. I know I'm still not perfect because I get over competitive and the details matter so much to me that sometimes I don't relate that the best to 16 and 17-year-olds. But I just know it starts with relationships. And Pat Mooney, who I coached with forever, was the best at that. And Greg at Millard South, who I'm close with, is great at that. So that's what I'm just kind of trying to continue to work on is, let the kids know I care about them and see how far we can go with this.
Well, Coach,
thing.
I'll praise you a little bit because I know you're humble, but there's a reason that head coaches get fired all the time. You cut off the head of the snake, and the snake doesn't live. So I think what you've done and what you've built is incredible. Obviously, we've talked about it. The players get the credit. They're the ones in the arena. They're the ones doing it. But if you don't have a leader behind them, making sure they're accountable, making sure they're in the weight room, scheduling everything. I've been on that side. I know it takes a bunch of work, and it's not always the work on the field that people see. There's a lot of administrative scheduling, everything that goes into it. So incredible, incredible job from you the last 3 years. And we at people are looking to continue to see that success. Obviously,
well, I appreciate that, and I just to jump in, man. Like, it's definitely not just me. I have a wife at home that runs the show that, takes our kids to their games and then picks them up and then runs them over so they can see the last few innings of dad's games. And, we have team parents that, have snacks and drinks in the dugout and food for the boys after the games and an assistant AD who's coordinating a bus schedule and finding us places to take BP. Like, it doesn't seem like a big operation, but it's like you win the state tournament game on Monday and you're playing on Wednesday, and it's like 25 minutes of just coordinating. Okay, when are the kids getting out of school, and when are they taking their finals, and when are we going to eat, and where are we going to hit? And well, it's pretty cool to have that many people that invested in your program. And I'm just really lucky to be.
It's like all those days
sure.
when Harbaugh would get a new job and they'd say that the janitor would get nervous because the details were so important to him that everybody needed to be all in or something was going to be off. And that's what you need. You need everybody on. Right. You need someone coordinating everything because there's so many little things to success, whether it's, like you said, scheduling or where we're going to eat. Are we going to take BP before game? Who's going to help with that? Can we find some cages? The whole nine. Go ahead.
I remember the state final in 2024. It's like kind of a big spectacle. They do the anthem and they do player introductions, and it's like the start time's supposed to be at 7, but the actual first pitch is at like 7:12. And so Coach Saltero and I mean, we're staying up for 2 hours trying to map up, okay, when exactly are we going to start our pitcher on his program? And in 2024, we kind of got Mick up maybe a little early, and he came in. And so this year it was like Kalai and Saltero came walking down right at the perfect time, and we were like fist pumping, like, man, we nailed that schedule. We handled that perfect. He's going to be ready to go out there and pitch at his best, and he did. So that was kind of a cool little small detail.
That's for that experience. You guys been in that 2 years in a row. We know this is going to happen. How are we going to adjust to make sure we're at our best? And it's again those little things that just it might not have made a difference, but it might have. You don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Don't leave it to chance for sure.
We talked about the spring season and a wildly successful one it was for you guys. You guys are at Notre Dame, right? Staring at touchdown Jesus. How has the summer been? You guys won a tournament in KC. Yep. The trophies just keep on rolling. Talk a little bit about the start of your Legion summer and how you guys use the Legion a little bit to bolster your program for the spring.
Well, I think summer baseball in general it's got to be more player focused, and in the spring, it's like the 9 or 10 guys that are in the lineup every day are kind of, able to grow, and everybody else is kind of just hanging on, waiting for their at bat in this game or, waiting for the opportunity. Summer baseball, whether it's, with the prospects or whether it's with a Legion program or whether it's with, another travel affiliate, I mean, it has to be player focused, and the players have to get what they need out of the summer to develop, first of all, as a player, but also, to get recruiting opportunities. So at East, we're trying to grow and we're trying to build and we're trying to make what we offer in the summer something that's a really good experience for our kids. And just a couple little things. Number one, we're definitely playing more guys in the summer than we do in the spring. We're rotating 12, 13, 14 hitters to give more guys opportunities to grow. It's a fine balance because you have seniors who have graduated who aren't going to play for your high school team anymore, but they've given you everything they've had. They've worked out, they've trained, and they still need a place to play. And then you have younger guys who have either started or you're hopefully looking for them to be starters in the future that need to play. So we definitely try to balance that. We're really blessed here because our older kids are bought in. The summer for them isn't a time off; it's a time to keep working and getting better. And we put a lot of pressure on them to show us how to play the right way and how to do things the right way. But from like a schedule standpoint, I just remember when we started this thing like 7 or 8 years ago, it was let's make some memories in the summer. Let's do some things different in the summer. We sat down and we've kind of looked at like the recruiting footprint for our kids. I think there's certain kids in certain classes that they want to get out and they want to go to school in Carolina, or they want to go to school on the East Coast, and that's awesome. And we hope any kid who wants the opportunity to do that gets to do that. But for the most part, 80 or 90% of our kids are going to school within 10 hours of home, whether it's at the Division I level, the Division II level, junior college. So when we started to travel and do different things, I think the biggest key for us is, what is that recruiting footprint like for our kids? And the PBR event in Kansas City is one of the best events that we go to. And I think we've gone for 3 years in a row now, because every year we go down there, it's, Hutch is down there watching, and Washburn's down there watching, and Augustina's down there watching, and KCK's down there watching. And then you talk to your players and your families, and those are all schools that they would be super interested in going to play at because they're close to home and they're really good programs. We've been fortunate to have success. So those schools will come out and they want to watch and they want to see, who's the next players coming up out of Lincoln East High School. So that's what we try to do. And then we just try to play a lot of really good competition at home. I don't know if you saw last weekend, but we had Papio South summer team and Prep summer team, which are loaded with college prospects. And then like this school from up in Fargo that was in the Legion World Series, they came down and we just played at Hartog. And I posted on Twitter, but I think we had about 15 or 16 different colleges coming out to watch, 2 or 3 Division I schools. And we saw on Thursday night, we saw a kid going to Minnesota. On Friday, we saw a kid that pitched for West Fargo that was like 86 to 90. And then on Saturday morning, we saw a kid from Fargo that was a sophomore that was like 90, 92. And it was like, this is about ideal, to be able to stay home and see that pitching has been really good. But there's a lot of different avenues in the summer. We have kids who go out and play travel baseball with the prospects or different organizations. That's great too, to go play with different kids and get different coaching and, travel and see that super high end stuff is awesome. Whatever is best for that kid and that family is what we support and what we want them to do. But we feel like we've seen a lot of growth with our summer program because it's 45, it's 55 more games of kids trying to steal third base and kids learning how to back up bases and kids trying to hold runners. This summer will be interesting. We're kind of beat up. We're super, super young, but they're hungry and they're fun and they have a lot of life. So it's been fun so far.
One thing I liked what you said is understanding the recruiting footprint. Obviously, you got to do that for your program as a whole. But I think that's good advice for any individual or parent trying to navigate this ever-changing world of recruiting right now, is understanding, who you are as a baseball player, where you want to be and how to get there. And then where to go to be seen by those particular schools. Like you said, 80, 90% of the kids in Nebraska are going to go to school and then 80 or in a 10-hour, period from where we are right now. So understanding who you are as a baseball player can really set yourself up for the recruiting and summer ball in general.
It's just so ever changing. It's the rules are changing, and the strategies at those levels are changing, and I think college baseball is probably as old as it's ever been, and I don't really see that changing.
I don't think
really
schools
don't
right now
so
really know what they're doing or what the best strategy is. I think a lot of them are trying to figure it out. Obviously the transfer portal and junior college and getting older guys is kind of the thing that works right now. But I think there will be a little bit of a swing back to some high school kids because, and even in Nebraska right now, there's incredibly talented kids that just don't have a spot to go, that aren't committed, that traditionally in the past probably would have a spot to go. So
Yeah, and you know as well as me, like if you're going to get better, you need to play, and so opportunity, I mean, should trump just about anything else. And it seems like the guys that are getting opportunities to play, whether it's Paul Shortridge at Grinnell, um, or Mason Gaines at UNO, are just having awesome experiences and enjoying it. So, yeah, it's a big thing, and families need to do their research and do their work and plug into the resources that they have available to make the best decisions for their family. With
it doesn't matter where you
with all
start
of
now
that stuff.
in college baseball. Does not matter. You can start NAI, JUCO. I know Coach Cook at Wayne State has sent some guys to some different schools. So it does not matter where you start. As long as you keep working, keep getting better, there will be plenty of opportunities for good baseball.
For sure.
Last thing I want to touch on is just some of the younger guys. Obviously, Kalai had an incredible year for you guys. Really stepped up on the mound. Obviously, you started playing first base. Tried to find ways to get him into the lineup and into the infield because you guys just didn't really have room for him with Division I guys all over the place. But who else on that team is up and coming that maybe some schools and recruiters need to be making note of?
Well, I mean, we started, down the stretch, we started 7 seniors, and they were just rock solid. That 7th inning of the state championship, we sent 5 straight seniors up to bat, and they all executed. But we had 2 young guys playing every day. Kalai, who, I think is every bit of a Division I type of player. He can play in the middle of the field. He can really pitch. But the thing that I hope people learned about Kalai this spring is that he just flat out competes. I mean, he's played up his whole life, and he's not afraid to compete and throw down and do his best versus your best and see what happens.
From the first 2 starts, I think you and me talked about it at the beginning. You kind of switched from just a straight 4-seam to more of a 2-seam with some run and some stink. His ability to make those adjustments, and he was a different pitcher by the time that state championship rolled around, even mid-season, than he was in those first 2 starts.
Yeah, his numbers after those first 2 starts were pretty remarkable for a 16-year-old kid, and it wasn't facing bad lineups. It was facing good teams.
It's not like he was like, hey, just okay. You didn't have really good outings as a young guy, and you're supposed to be the dude. It was. I thought it was a real tough, like you talked about toughness earlier in the podcast, a real toughness moment for Kalai, and he showed up for all of those kids in your program and made the adjustments necessary.
Yeah, for sure. And then Brody played pretty much every game with kind of a repaired. He had a growth plate issue and was just battling through it. So he's really starting to shine this summer. He's starting to, drive the ball again, which is awesome. And then we had, some younger guys mixing in the spring that are playing a bunch in the summer. Guys like Dele Adelate,
he came to
flat out fly.
That dude is a
Bryson.
freak.
Yeah, I think after that event, my phone was just blowing up from, man, when are we going to be able to see this guy? And they've been coming out to see him.
6'4", I think, and 100
he's
exit velo. And just
6'4", and
a lot of
102, and just 4.0 GPA, just a great kid, a great smile, a great family. So we're excited about Dele. Bryson Rhodes is another kid that can fly, that had a lot of success this spring. He's a sophomore that can really play. We have another sophomore, Cruz Wavra, who's playing every day in the summer for us, who can hit from the left side. He's just a kind of a throwback, just a competitive at bat. So we like those guys. And then, we're really young on the mound. We have, Grayson Bjorkman's a 2026 arm that threw a ton this spring. Santino Aranaga is a 2026 arm that threw a bunch this spring. Trevor Roach is a 26 arm that, can get it up to the mid-8s that threw a bunch this spring. So we really like those guys. And, we're excited to see, how much they improve in the next 6 to 12 months, because they're going to have to get a lot better if they're going to lead our team.
The standard is a standard.
Be the college prospects. The college prospects.
Standard is a standard at East. Don't complain about the expectations. Just live up to them. Those 3 pitchers that you mentioned had really good springs, though. Grayson Borkman's got as much projection, I think, as anyone out there with the way he moves and his height and his body. And
he's just an elite competitor. I mean, just a fierce competitor. I put that kid on the mound any day because he just wants to get outs and get in the dugout.
You can see that
in
the dugout. Obviously he wasn't someone that played, every day, but his energy out of the dugout was noticeable from me just sitting in the stands. And when there was excitement, he was excited.
And an elite baseball IQ, knows how to control the run game for a big guy and field his position. And so I think he'll be a really, really good player as he grows into his body and gets older.
Santino was a 4-pitch mix mid-80s, but I wanted to touch on Trevor Roach ran a 6.58 60. I mean, you talk about his ability on the mound, the athleticism upside that Trevor has is there, and maybe it not be fully realized on the mound yet, but I think his projection with his athleticism, if he continues to go on the mound, will be through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, to hit on Santino, we're talking about a kid whose ERA was touching 4 last summer on JV, and then 10 months later his ERA this spring was like sub 1. So one, testament to him for the work he put in and his ability to spin the ball and his ability to keep attacking the zone. And then 2, like, it goes back to like Jeter makes those guys a lot better, and Jeter makes those guys a lot more confident when they can throw a 58-foot breaking ball and there's a runner on third and he's not going to go anywhere. The growth Santino had totally changed our season, and then adding Trevor to our program was just a huge boost. He moved into Lincoln to live with his grandpa, and he had a great year too. He had some really good outings without necessarily great secondary stuff, and he's still working through finding the ability to spin it when he wants. But he's playing a lot in the field for us this summer. If you have a guy that runs a 6.58, like, you're gonna get on the field and we're gonna get you a bunch of at bats, and we're excited about him and what he can be. He can play a little infield. He's really good in the outfield, and big summer for Trevor. He's actually pitching later today, so it'll be fun to watch him.
I think Santino. Oh, there's his son. There he is. What's going on? Yeah, I do.
Griff, say hi.
Nebraska baseball community. I think Santino was a guy he came into the All-State event and was, mid-80s, surprising me. And I had to talk to you about him, like, hey, who is this dude? And you were really excited about him heading into the year.
Yeah, he's just getting better and better and better. And, he's just another kid that's pitched at about every level at East. And, he's had some bouts where he struggled with command, but he just keeps working through it. And it's a testament to him and, our coaching staff and our catchers for seeing that growth. But he's going to need to have a big year for us if we're going to stay in the hunt.
Well, Coach, congrats on all the success this year. I know you got a couple games to get to over at ND, and good luck to you on that. We're always grateful that you come onto the podcast with us. We're excited to see another Lincoln East state title run in 2026. Good luck in Notre Dame. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. We appreciate it. Thanks for
everyone
having
out there. Thanks for listening to the All Beef No Filler podcast. Join us every other week for another episode. Thank you.